Welcome into the room. I am Jay. He is Drew. Are you ready for episode 23, Mr. Lasker?
Well, I mean, 23 represents my idol, MJ. So, just for that reason, we got to go hard on this episode.
Absolutely. We haven't reached the heights of a Michael Jordan interview just yet, but we do have a BBL legend with us this week, head coach of the Leicester Riders, Rob Paternostro. We get the serial winner in the room for a good chat. This combined with all your favorites as we get you the week's scores and top performers, player of the week candidates, fans mailbag, Lasker look back. But first, the Marriott Minute. Okay, intrigued me. Lewis Petit, former Bristol Flyers guard, and with me at Plymouth, finished his last session of chemotherapy. A brave young man who I have a lot of love for and wish health and happiness moving forward. Niall Gray, our man on the mic at Surrey Scorchers, has been under the weather this weekend, also missing a game, and we wish him a speedy recovery. New signing alert in Surrey, also with the arrival of big man Lacey James. Welcome to the league, Lacey. Congratulations to the Leicester Riders women as they won the WBBL Cup final for the first time in their history. Captain Kate Oliver winning MVP with 18 points and 14 rebounds. Okay, engage me. Bristol Flyers star guard Teddy Okorafor is set to break a 45-year-old record for consecutive appearances for the Great Britain national team. He is also just 2 assists away from being the first GB national team member to join the 200 assist club. Good luck to Teddy O. Hoops Fix, with my favorite of their podcasts so far, and there have been some good ones, but as a fan of Australian basketball, Sam got to sit down with NBL Australia Commissioner Jeremy Loliger as he outlined how he played a part in turning the fortunes of the league around and into the success it is today. Some great lessons we can learn here in the UK. I found it fascinating. Check it out. Podcasters All Things Giant with Jake and Jordan with a great engagement piece on the socials thread. Thursday, show us your best jerseys. Great fun. A lot of nostalgia coming out. Fellow podcaster and commentator Pablo Cheeks is leading the way with some gems, including a Dennis Rodman Brighton Bears jersey. Good job, Pablo. Back to Surrey Scorchers. They have a new partner, Hop Protein. Their protein bars packing some high protein. What makes them unique? That protein is from insects. Yes, insects. You don't need to be a celeb. You don't need a jungle. Hot Protein bring you insects in the form of cricket flour. Great initiative and an exciting new company. Please check out the player statements that went out Sunday night by stars across the league titled, "What Can I Do?" A stand to do more following the Glasgow Rocks racism incident and a commitment to keep figuring out what can I do. All of us here at the show stand with our host, Mr. Lasker, our league, and our players. Okay, lastly, our guest on the predictions, Arabella Aardvark, tied it up with me this week, proving a far greater adversary than Mr. Lasker. I'm sure he will establish a hotline for tips from Arabella, so well done to you. Okay, amused me. So speaking of Mr. Lasker, great news, Surrey Scorchers got a win. The bad news is Mr. Lasker didn't pick them. He kept them in the win column for a loyally long time, but as the faith dropped, in came the win. So for the Scorchers, they will want him to keep going against them more often. Denzel Ubiaro, Plymouth Raiders high-flying British guard, is making a bid to become more active on the socials. His early observations are that he needs more shoes and more tattoos. So watch this space for Denzel. Sheffield Sharks got into Dave Forrester's doghouse this weekend by anointing Rob Marsden as the king of the mid-range, forgetting the true heir, Mr. 26, Darius Defoe. Be careful, Sharks. He's got a strong bite. Lastly, let's finish with the coolest tweeter in the business, Coach Vince McCauley, giving us a weekend mantra, declaring, happy weekend all. There's a lot of uptight people out there. Chill. A rising tide lifts all boats. What a great way to finish the Marriott Minute. I'm always watching.
Great minute as always, Jay and Arabella. I will be in your DMs for the rest of the season, but let's keep that between me and you. Moving along to where most of us are trying to get over the hump on Wednesdays, but in the British Basketball League, we got action. The week begins in dramatic fashion as the Wolves and Giants battle it out in a barn burner in the first round of the trophy until the dying seconds until Martin Boughton and said, the hell with this, coach. I got this, and hit 2 daggers in the dying seconds to give the Wolves a 102-96 win. Brandon Anderson starred with 24 points and 8 assists. Wolves move on to the second round where they host the favorites, Plymouth Raiders. Thursday night in the nation's capital, where some previewed it as the trophy final, but the drawn powers of Dan Routless drew the heavyweights in the first round. Lions edged out the Riders 76-71, where Josh Ward Hilbert, in only 5 minutes of action against his former club, stepped on the court cold and hit a corner ball 3 to give the Lions the lead in the final 30 seconds. DeAndre Liggins with 13 points and 12 assists. Moving on to Friday night, parties jumping, feeling right, where the Sharks shocked the Cup champs in the Eagles Community Arena 90-70. Jeremy Hensley with 13.6 rebounds and 5 assists. Down in Worcester, the Plymouth Raiders kept rolling with the league high 5 on the bounce as they tamed the Wolves 104-82. Ashley Hamilton with 22 points and 8 rebounds. 30 miles down south in Bristol, after being down 24 points, the Flyers rallied back as Ben Moffitt hit a dagger from 35 feet to give Bristol the lead with 4 seconds to go. But Mike McCall said, haha, watch this, and hit a double clutch 3 at the buzzer to seal the deal 71-69 as Mike finished with 23 points and 4 rebounds. Down in Manchester, it's something about that Sky TV crew that gets Teo, Ryan, Richard, and the boys looking like the team we predicted them to be as they defeated the Giants 93-86. Tony Hicks with 20 points and 8 assists, and most importantly, he finished the game on the floor. Saturday night down in Surrey, Wolves playing their 3rd game in 4 days, looking lethargic and a step slow as Surrey controlled majority of this game until Brandon Anderson said, that's why y'all waited so patiently on the cavalry, scoring 15 straight points as Surrey did not score a field goal in the last 4 minutes and 30 seconds to seal the win in Surrey Sports Park 77-75. Anderson with 22 points and 6 rebounds. Finally, Sunday afternoon, where 99% of the men in Britain was running around picking up last-minute Valentine's gifts. But in the BBL, there's no time for love as we start in Plymouth, where the Raiders tested their 5-game winning streak against Vince McCauley and the London Lions. DeAndre Liggins and company said, payback, sir. You know the rest. As Dirk Williams cooled off the Raiders 87-70, Dirk with 25 points and 7 rebounds. Momentum building in Sheffield as they hosted the Riders with their 3-game win streak. Nelson Henry said, get your weight up, as he bullied his way to 23 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. Riders winning 107-93 as Riders control the table at 11-1. Newcastle defeated the Flyers without high flyer Justin Gordon 74-66 on the road. Fletcher with a professional performance, 25.6 assists and 4 rebounds. Whoop, whoop. That's the sound of the police. Shocker in Cheshire where the Glasgow Rocks upset the Phoenix 67-62 and move along to the semifinals of the trophy. Rocks media team got so excited about advancing that they tweeted a controversial Valentine's Day message. I'll let you be the judge if it crossed the line or if you take it as tongue in cheek. And that wraps up an exciting week in the British Basketball League.
Thank you, Mr. Lasker. That leads us nicely into the Player of the Week candidates. Tough to get it down to 3, but we got to keep it tight, guys. So here we go. In number 1 spot, Leicester Riders, Darian Nelson Henry, 23.7 rebounds, 6 assists for a 32 2 index. Number 2, London Lions, DeAndre Liggins, 25 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists for a 28 index. Tough to leave out Dirk because they both played great. And lastly, Plymouth Raiders, star man Ashley Hamilton, 22 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists for a 27 index. Shout out to 3 others: Worcester Wolves, Jordan Williams, Newcastle Eagles, Ramon Fletcher, and Glasgow Rocks, Christian Keelan. Close calls, so well done to them also. Okay, let's transition to the velvety tones of Mr. Lasker with an Italian flavor. It's the Lasker Look Back.
In today's episode of the Lasker Look Back, I give you a little insight into the career of Rob Paternostro. Now, I can come on here and educate you about the 9 titles as Leicester Riders coach, or maybe his sideline antics in which seems to make some fans around the league a little uncomfortable. Or I can talk about the time me and Rob nearly came to blows back in 2014 after I accidentally bumped into him after hitting a late huge bucket, which turned into an Eagle Rider scrum and ultimately had Drew Sullivan escorted off the court. I mention that to say, give Rob some slack. He's from the East Coast, blue-collar town in Connecticut, where he's just emotionally passionate about the game of basketball, and rightfully so. But I'm here to talk about Rob the player. Oh yeah, Rob Paternostro used to ball, and I actually caught him on the end of his professional career and remember thinking, what the hell is wrong with this guy, as he would do his best Gino Crandell impressions with the ball in his hands. His playing days consisted of 155 games in a British basketball league with an average of 10.4 points, 5.2 assists, and 1.1 steals per game in 30.5 minutes. Remarkably, Rob had 1 block in his entire career, but I'll let him share that story. His best season came in 2001-2002 season with splits of 14 points, 7 assists, while shooting a career high 48%. And if you head across the pond to Connecticut, he's a household name locally, as he averaged 25 points per game his senior year while balancing soccer and baseball. He earned himself a college scholarship to Southern New Hampshire University, where he was entered into the school's Hall of Fame in 2001, leaving as the school's all-time assist leader with 919, along with the most games played with 129. Oh yeah, Rob was a baller, but now an even better coach. And that is your Lasker Look Back. And Dan Routledge, thanks for the stats.
Great job, Mr. Lasker. That leads us nicely to our guest segment. 5 times BBL Coach of the Year, 3 times BBL Championship winner, 2 times BBL Championship playoff winner, 2 times BBL Trophy winner, 2 times BBL Cup winner. Not a bad rap sheet. Let's welcome into the room Leicester Riders head coach, Rob Paternostro. Coach Rob, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, after being enemies all these years, Sky TV now, the BBL show, I'm afraid that we're becoming civil now, Rob.
Well, fake enemies, buddy. Everything's fake. It's all phony. It's like WWF wrestling out there. It changes when you leave the floor. But yeah, I mean, that's part of sports, right? You compete as hard as you can, and it's always fun to meet up with the people you compete against in different scenarios and different situations. It's been like that all my life, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. Welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you.
I love it. Right. I need to get something out of the way first. Okay.
Okay.
So you have a way of making us mere mortals feel inferior. Okay. You were a top player, a great coach, killing it on the commentary, and now on the Sky Sports team, you're like a natural. So for me, for the fans, is there something out there in the world that you are bad at?
Oh yeah, DIY, brutal. I mean,
Oh,
not
yeah.
even just brutal. My wife does it all. So and my son just left for university. I'm lost half the time trying to figure out anything with technology. I'm a mess. So DIY, technology, brutal, embarrassing.
He bleeds just the way we do, guys. So that's great to hear. That's always a really good start for us.
It's good to hear that I'm not the only one that makes my wife do flat packs on her own, because
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but you put it on Insta stories. Coach Rob doesn't do that stuff,
yeah. So Coach, we hear that you're an avid baseball fan. So firstly, are you a Red Sox or Yankee guy? And secondly, I'm an Astro fan myself.
Ooh.
So do you discount our title back in 2017 with the whole sign stealing fiasco?
Well, first off, I'm a Yankee fan. My whole family's Yankee fans. I mean, I live in an area of Connecticut which is split in a way. So we're only about an hour and 15 from New York City, about 2 hours from Boston. So some people go one way, some people go the other. Yankees all the way. And to answer your question, absolutely no way do I count that World Series.
Oh,
no
come on,
way.
Coach. Come on.
When you have a buzzer out inside your jersey that's telling you if the curve or the fastball is coming, that's unbelievable. I mean, even hitting the pots and pans. There was a great podcast I listened to about it too, and it was really informative. So no, and they actually beat the Yankees. So I'm saying no way I don't count that one. And no one in baseball counts it either.
Well, what's the difference when you're calling our plays when Fletcher's dribbling the ball up the court and you're saying New York, New York, New York?
That's all. Yeah, but that's all research from before. I'm not trying to steal any signs or anything like that. The Astros stealing signs, brutal. I mean, that's embarrassing. And yeah, no way.
This looks like this could be a pod of its own. So I'm going to pull it right back to basketball. So for listeners out there, they may only know you as a coach. So let's catch him up a little bit. Give us a pre-Rider Days synopsis of you.
Yeah, I was a basketball player, in high school, and I had to make a decision, right? And baseball as well. I played soccer too. I played 3 sports, but, it came down to baseball or basketball for my choice, and it was kind of a last minute decision for me. I went basketball financially. The scholarship offer was better. Baseball does a lot of splits with all the players that they have, so you had to pay a little bit. So I went down the basketball route, and I picked a Division II school in New Hampshire. And it was a magical time for me. 107-24 in 4 years. We won all the time. I tell people, go to a program that's going to win, because everybody's happy when you're winning. The coach says hello to you. You're laughing. You're joking. So it was an awesome experience. I had a good career there, All-American. And I signed with an agent. And, signing with that agent, I started playing in the USBL, which was before the NBA Summer League really got going. It was big in the mid 90s in the US, played in that. And then I bounced around for a while, played in a bunch of different countries, had a great experience. And I left basketball though in 1999. In 1999, I left basketball and I went to work at ESPN. So I worked at ESPN for a year and came back to basketball with the Birmingham Bullets. And that's how I got to England. I came back to England in 2000 with the Bullets. And I played for the Bullets for a few years. I actually went to Belgium in between there, and then the Riders, Panthers, and now I'm a coach. So, I've been all over the world, and I almost stopped playing. When I went to ESPN, I thought my career was done. And, all of a sudden I got a phone call, and I came back to playing basketball, which I'm happy I did.
Yeah, thank goodness that happened. So, talk to us about how the opportunity arose to coach in Leicester. How did that journey start?
Yeah, listen, I was actually teaching at the time. I had just finished playing for the Birmingham Panthers, and I was teaching at a school in Birmingham, teaching PE. I was a little unsure on what the next step was basketball-wise, but I loved the teaching job that I had. And I got a message from the Riders asking me if I would be interested in going for the job. Actually, Dan Routledge sent me that message. He was a friend of mine, and I had done a lot of TV work with him, and he, I guess he put my name forward to the people at Leicester, and I said yeah, and I came up and had an interview with them, and Yeah, I stayed with my teaching job though. That's a
Wow.
a story I don't know too many people know. My first year when I coached the Riders, I taught in Birmingham as well. So I would teach in Birmingham. I would leave Birmingham about 3:30, 4 o'clock, drive up through the traffic to Leicester, and have practice every night in Leicester. So the first year was quite hectic. I didn't want to give up that teaching job. I wanted to make sure that the coaching was right for me. So I asked them if I could do both. They said, hey, no problem. And I grinded it out that season. It was certainly a challenge, but yeah, that's how it came about. And I had played for Leicester, so I knew the people pretty well, and I understood the passionate fan base that they had. Now they didn't have a good record; they were always at the bottom of the table. So I love that, because I looked at it as a challenge to really bring them back up. And I thought that with the fan base and with the ownership that they had, I felt like that it was possible and it was doable. And, it was a challenge that I looked forward to.
Yeah, for sure. And look, from a coach's perspective, of course, all the plaudits rightly fall at your feet. The team and individual accolades have already, cemented you as a BBL great, in my eyes at least. So, but as we all know in the room, you can only be as successful as your environment. And it seemed on the outside that the club has grown with you as a coach. The team's success across the board, from college to the pros, the community programs, the new arena, I could go on. Clubs around the league admire the Riders' infrastructure. What would you personally attribute that success to?
Well, I think, the people working here, we didn't have a huge staff when we came in. Obviously, with Kevin Routledge and the Routledge family on board, they have such a good reputation in Leicester. And then when Russell Levingston came on, his passion, his commitment, his drive to get things done, certainly it was a factor in anything we did on and off the court. And I think that there was a passion there, not only on the court, but off, to really get this thing going in the right direction. And then the bottom line is we had just great fan support. And what I mean, it's not just, good game. It was doing all the little things that you needed volunteers to do. If we didn't have those volunteers, there's no way we would be where we'd be right now. And they did so much for us in the early going to get us moving in the right direction. So, that group of fans and that are still actively coming to games and supporting our club, they're the ones that really kept this thing afloat, because without them, we wouldn't be in the position where we are.
No, I love that. And, look, success of this particular roster is still pending. The season's still going. But in terms of a group to coach, a group you are with on a daily basis, where do you rank them with the teams of yesteryears? I'm sure there are some big characters that you can fondly remember, so we got Big Tony Rowe, Andrew Sullivan, Barry Lamble, Adam Williams is a name drop right there, Yorick, Taylor King, Zaire Taylor, who, by the way, recently on the show said that you taught him all he needs to know about fashion. Can you confirm, is that true? Came on with the pink robe. He said that may have been favorite.
The Versace robe at that.
Man, there's no fashion tips going to Zaire from me. But I will say this, he did come to practice like that. He would come with a suitcase to practice too, which was always fascinating to me. He'd be pulling a suitcase into practice. That's, most guys come in with the backpack or the back. He'd pull a suitcase into practice. And I have so many stories about him that I'm probably not going to go into right here. But I love Zaire Taylor. He was one of my favorite players ever. That guy could dominate a game without taking a shot. And he did not care about the stat sheet. I mean, he was so locked into what the team was doing. He was an awesome, but what a character he was. But yeah, when you look at this year's team, compared to other teams, I'll say this, I feel like that we have a group of guys that really mentally are locked in as any team I've ever had. It helps to have some Ivy Leaguers around. We have 2 Ivy Leaguers, and we have Aaron Falzone who went to Northwestern, which is almost Ivy League, I guess. But, all kidding aside, I feel like that this group really sets itself apart, or in the same category as a lot of the great teams I have, because mentally they're really locked in, and I enjoy learning from them. I think that with all the great teams I had and all the great players that I've had come in, I've learned so much from them. And I think my first season, I think that's something that I realized was that, wow, you could learn so much from all these guys. These guys have so much experience, and this year is the same. When we go over game plans and we go over what we want to do, it's not just me talking and them listening. It's us together coming with the best ideas that we can. Now, obviously, you have to have one guy that makes the final decision, but we collaborate on everything. And this team this year has been phenomenal with that. I really enjoy, talking basketball and breaking down the game with this group.
Yeah, that's awesome, Coach. But like Jay just mentioned, you've coached some unbelievable teams, some unbelievable players as well. And I used to love the battles that we used to have with Eagles versus Riders. And I actually feel like the last 2 years, the rivalry hasn't quite felt the same. And I think maybe that, with Lions in the mix have probably played a big part of that. But let's talk about the teams that you hated to face over your coaching career. So 2 teams, what are the 2 toughest teams that you hated to face, or that you just love to face just because of the competitiveness of them?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm just going to stick with the Eagles on this one. I don't know, like, each team, what team was there. I'll give you some players, obviously, but yeah, the Eagles Riders rivalry was phenomenal. We went through such a stretch where we were just seeing each other in all the finals, year in and year out. Every regular season game was played like a final.
Yes,
it was amazing, and I do believe that the league really needed that at the time too. I feel like that. I can remember being down on the floor in these finals and just thinking to myself, man, this is good basketball right here. Good size, strength, intelligence, all that stuff was out on the floor. And I felt like the league went through, was navigating through some tough times right before that. And I believe that rivalry really helped get the league going in the right direction, and really showed that, we could really make this league, bring this league back to where it was. But yeah, playing against the Eagles is always a challenge. Obviously, with Fab on the other side, I had played against Fab a lot. I mean, the first time I played against Fab, I remember just thinking to myself, "Who is this dude, man?" Like, I mean, I played around the world. I've played in the park. I played wherever. I never seen anybody play the way he played. I mean, he was so unique in how he went about the game, and his disruption on the defensive end, how he can just change the game that way. But competing against him, you had to bring your best because you knew he was going to bring it. He was such a difficult player to prepare for because of all the intangibles that he brought. Charles Smith, any team that he was on, you just see him all of a sudden, you see the ball heading over to him and you'd be like, no. And he was just buried a big shot. But yeah, all those Eagles teams for me were just so competitive, so intelligent, and just had so many big time players that would make big time plays. And obviously with number 44 now, and in the past, what a unique, special player he is to go against. It's so hard to defend him and deal with him. But, those teams with the Eagles, I mean, he had the clean sweep year. That was such a tough year with Martin and with Andy. When he was on the dark side over there before he came over before he came over the other side of the forest. But yeah, I mean, I think that that team was really tough to play against.
Yeah.
Just the strength. Andre Jones was so tough. Chapman, when Chapman was out there, 6'6" guard, that was really tough to play against. So yeah, I mean, I think the Eagles set themselves apart as the team that was the hardest to play. But you didn't hate playing against them. You kind of loved it because the way it raised.
You knew that the level was going to be at an all-time high for sure.
100%. I wasn't looking for him in the draw, though. I wasn't like, I hope we get the Eagles. I never said that. But it was just a fun time to be a coach and to be competing. And man, we had some great games over the years. Great games that people forget about too, that weren't in finals, that were great games.
Yeah, you can almost compare that rivalry to the 80s with the Lakers Celtics, just constantly coming up against each other every single final. And like you said, like you knew that you were going to see the best version of yourself as a player because we knew that your teams was going to bring that out of us. But let's just talk about individual players over the course of your career. Just give us a couple names, 3 players who you would say are probably the toughest 3 players that you faced.
Well, I'll go back to when I was a player a little bit too,
Okay.
So, when I came in this league, I came in this league in 2000, And there were so many great players in this league at that time, so many great guards, like when you go down the list of point guards that you had to cover every night, it was extremely challenging each night. You had TJ Walker, obviously from Newcastle, Rob Yanders, Ted Berry, John Thomas, Randy Duck, Nate Ranking, Terrell Myers. I mean, these are all the guards in the league at the same time. So every night you're coming up against these players that are just like, man, like, what am I going to do with him tonight? What am I going to do? But there was one guy that I know covering that was the hardest guy to guard was John Thomas. John Thomas played for Cheshire in 2002 and 2003. Small guy, but strong. He was one of the most difficult players to defend because he was lightning quick and he could change direction on a dime, and then he could pull up and hit the jump shot. So I always used to say he was the toughest guy I ever had to guard in this league, me personally. Coaching, I got to go with Charles Smith. I mean, obviously when we had Drew, we had the guy that could disrupt him a little bit, but he was so difficult to defend, and he always was able to come up with the big player, be in the right spot to catch the ball and hit the big shot. And he was a nightmare. And I'll say Fab too, because how do you prepare for a guy like that? How do you prepare for a guy that's going to cover 5 guys at the same time on the floor? That had that physical presence. He was just so unique that made him so tough to stop. John McCord back in the day, I didn't guard him. He was bigger, couldn't deal with him. He was 6'7", handled the ball, did everything. There's so many greats in the league. Terrell Myers, though, I think too. He was another guy. He played for Sheffield. He ended up leading the ACB in scoring a couple of years later in Spain. He had played in this league, and he was one of the reasons why I came to this league. He's from Connecticut, a Connecticut guy. I knew him. I actually had called him before I came over to ask, what do you think? Oh yeah. He's like, you'd love it. You'd love Birmingham. He was right about that. I did love it there, but he was a tough cover too. So yeah, if you look back at the rosters in 2000, when I came in, just loaded with talent, loaded with tough matchups.
Yeah, some great names right there. That was real, like, sort of, that was kind of my era, I think, growing up as well. Terrell Myers, I remember greatly. I thought he was terrific. But look back to this season. This is such a balanced team, and it seems unfair to speak about just one player. But the general, as we like to call him here, Gino Crandell, was just named Player of the Month, rightly so. What a run he's on at this particular time. What's it been like working with him this season?
Yeah, it's been awesome. Again, we had Jonah Matthews in here at the beginning of the year. We signed him out of USC, really good player, and he got here and he was here for a little while, and he was talented. But he thought that he was going to go back home, get ready for the draft, and we'll see you later. So we had to find somebody, right? So all of a sudden we're like, well, okay, I got an email about a guy, Gino Crandell. So I started to look at him. I saw De La Salle High School he went to. I was like, De La Salle High School? That's where Cameron Rundles went to school. So I called Cam and I said, hey, Cam, I said, I got this guy, Gino Crandell, that just came through, on an email. He goes, you got a chance to get him? I go, yeah. He's like, do it now. Don't even think twice. I said, well, he goes, don't even think twice. Just do it now. Trust me, Rob. Trust me. Do it now. And after looking at him and after Cam's, recommendation, it was a no-brainer. Gino is, you should see him in practice. People keep saying to me, wow, some of the things he does in the game, you should see him just playing one-on-one in practice. He is incredibly gifted with the ball. But what I love about Gino, there's a couple things I love about Gino. I love his toughness, competitiveness. I always say, like, when I look at players, I always ask this question. I started asking this from the beginning of my coaching career. Would I take him to the park against competitive players where you had to try to win to stay on all day? When you used to go to the park back in the 90s, nobody goes to the park probably anymore, but back in the 90s, in the 80s, when I was growing up, like, you better win or else you're going to be sitting there all day.
You better go home because you're not going to play another game.
So you better bring the right people in the car. So Gino gets a seat in the car. I mean, he's getting in the car. I don't care who we're playing, when we're playing, double rims, no nets, no matter what, wind, rain, he's getting in that car because he is a guy that you want to compete with at any time. I think the teammates feel the same about him with that, is that, you could have great player, but maybe he doesn't bring out the best in his teammates. Gino does bring out the best in his teammates. The players like him. They respect him and they love what he brings on the floor. And then the other thing with Gino is he's so smart. He's a super duper smart kid. Like, when you go over the game plan for the other team, he has some great points to come up with. He come over to me during the game. He's reading the game so well. So the athletic ability, the speed, the scoring, the passing, that's unbelievable. But the competitiveness and the intelligence to go on top of that makes him, a tremendous player, and a player that I could see having some great success. I mean, remember, this is only his second year out. Yeah. I think the future is extremely bright for him. He's been awesome to work with.
I think like when he came onto the show as well, like he was such a good guest. We really enjoyed having him. And I think at the start of the year, looking at some of the preseason games and stuff like that, of course we saw all the moves and everything else like that. And you always wonder, is there some substance to that? And I think he kind of reminds me a little bit of yourself, I think, especially sort of like defensively. He just, everybody seems riled by him. Like, even if he's not guiding them, he seems to have them a little bit rattled. He just getting around them. He just around the waist all the time, talking to them. He just seems, you wonder if a player like that's got substance, and he just looks great. And he seems to be getting better for you.
Well, look, man, and you're right about that. And that's the other thing. And I'll get to that in a second. But when you go from, playing at a mid-major, and then all of a sudden you show up at Gonzaga for your senior year, and you're playing close to 20 minutes a game on Gonzaga. And I read a lot of articles, and it's part of the recruiting is you go down this rabbit hole and you try to find stuff about players. And there's been so many times I went down that rabbit hole and I'm like, whoa, I can't take that guy. But when I saw that, I saw, what the Gonzaga's coaching staff was saying, how quickly he picked everything up. And it's been amazing. It's almost like he's been here for 4 years. So if you can go there and do that and play a totally different role than he was playing at his other school, where he's getting all the shots, making all the plays, to me, that was impressive. You look at his numbers at Gonzaga, okay, solid in the minutes he played. They don't jump off the page. But to be able to adapt like that on the fly at such a high level was awesome to see. And I do think, as you said, he is improving. I think, last year he played off the ball a lot in the Czech Republic. And I think that, this year he's got the ball in his hands a lot more. And I think that his ability to set players up gets better and better and better every day. Now he's learning our players and all that, but I could seriously see him even getting better as the years goes on and being a real tough point guard to deal with in any league.
Absolutely. Coach, let's get to the other side of the other side of your life, which fans and followers of this league may not get an opportunity to see. And that's you're a real family man. And we also know the insane schedule of a head coach. But one thing that I've consistently heard from your players is how much you do value family. So how do you find to manage to balance the two? The coaching and then your family? Is it perfectly balanced, or is one of those things that, your family understands that during the season, they're probably not going to see you as much?
Yeah, listen, my wife is great. She's been wonderful ever since we met, in understanding, what it takes to coach at this level, and how I feel about, putting the work in. She's awesome how she manages everything. So I have to give her a shout out. Sarah has been, amazing with that, taking care of the family. But yeah, you have to try to get the right balance. You hear about these NFL coaches that are in the office, 20 hours a day. You can't do that. I mean, I think you burn yourself out with that. So you have to try to get the right balance, and it can be tough. Sorry about that. I think that's me. But you have to have the right balance on and off the court to keep this going. This is my 14th season here. So, I think I would have been burned out a long time ago if it was just basketball and I didn't have that. When I first started coaching, I had my son, and I know a lot of people used to see him. He's now in university. Wow. So he was a little kid running around with me. It was just him and I here. So I had the scouting report in one hand, laundry in the other. but we would have such a good time traveling to games and all that. And now I have the two little ones at home that, no matter what happens, we've had some tough losses this year. So no matter what happens, you get home and they're smiling at you and hugging you and doing what they do. It really brings you back. As a coach, sometimes you could take these losses so hard and they're so tough. And but when you have that balance with the family and you have a wonderful wife like Sarah is, you can feel a little bit better when you go back home.
Puts it all in perspective for sure.
No doubt.
No, absolutely. I love that. And I think as family men, should I say, all of us kind of understand that and really, really appreciate that and value that time. And
I think, guys,
balance.
Yeah. And I think it's important that, for me as a coach, I have to understand that about my players as well, and I think that, I've always been the kind of guy that will understand, if you need something, for family or whatever. There's been so many times the players come to me and say, Coach, I don't know if I can make it this day. I got you have to kind of understand that side of it. And I think that we've had a great balance here at Leicester with that. We feel like we're, a lot like Newcastle as well, with our fans and our volunteers and supporters. We feel like it's a big family here too. And I think that's what's a little unfortunate about the season for our club. I'm sure for other clubs, is they're not getting that experience that they normally get. When you play for the Riders, it isn't just about what goes on in between the lines. It's about the contacts you make. It's about the friends that you make, the family that, we've had players that haven't been here 9-10 years, but they still stay in contact with so many people in our organization. So I think that it helps when you have that kind of atmosphere. Maybe the players will go a little harder in practice. Maybe the players will be more together. And I think that we've always wanted to, to have that here in Leicester.
Yeah, trust me. We were actually talking about a couple episodes ago about what's important to a player and what's attractive to a player. And you just mentioned that about the Riders, and the culture is here the same. In Newcastle, while I've been here so many years, it started with Fab and now with Ian McLeod, is, they understand that family side, especially for me who got 2 kids. If I got an appointment or if I got to do something with my family, that's an excuse absence for training. And for me as a player, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And I think that was same for me as a player, and I've had coaches, and, when you play for so many coaches, I play for so many coaches around the world, you get to see what to do, but also what not to do. So I think that, I always wanted to be that guy that the player could come to and, could be understanding to the situations that arise. And when you're in the job, as long as I have, the situations have come up like that. And I think that, it's very valuable to your club. And it's very valuable to the team on a whole, because they know you got your back. And, I think a lot of times people will see, I might say, what are you doing? Or I yell. So, as a coach, you do that. And they may think something different, but, when it all comes down to it, I love my players and I'll do anything for my players. And, I want them to understand they got me in their corner.
I absolutely love that. And there's definitely a balance to be had that it looks like you strike really, really well, and that does give you a little bit of license maybe to be hard sometimes at the right moments. It's expected and it's taken well. But hey, we need to ask you one last important question. Okay. I know you're extremely proud of your Italian heritage. Okay. A country world renowned for its cuisine. So
yes.
If you had to pick one dish to represent you, to represent Italian culture, what would it be?
One.
Wow, man, I don't know if I can do that. I'm gonna have to give you a couple. I'll tell you why, because there's been women in my life, important women in my life, that have that one dish. So I'm gonna give one from each. All right, how about that?
Yeah, that's fair.
My grandmother, Nicolina, God rest her soul. She was the most amazing cook around. So amazing that when I went over somebody else's house, I just couldn't even eat their stuff. You know what I mean? I'm like, what's this? I could never eat a sauce out of a can. Never. She made the most amazing meatballs and sauce. I'm going to give that for her. Just simple. Meatballs and sauce, amazing. My mother does a great chicken cutlets, fried chicken. When she comes over, she's been over many times here. She makes the chicken cutlets. And then the last one's my wife, who is not Italian last name now, but she makes incredible prawns, all right? Prawns with linguine in a cream sauce. And I know when that comes out, it's going to be a great night.
There you go. That is, I think that's enough to make the listeners and ourselves hungry. So
I'm a bit peckish now.
Me and Drew are going to have to leave and go and cook something up. That was absolutely great. But Coach, it's been great to finally get you on here. We kept talking about where's the right time to kind of bring you in. I was looking forward to this. And as always, you never disappoint. Good luck with the rest of the season and the battle for those trophies. We'll speak to you soon, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. Talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot, Rob. Appreciate you, man.
See you later.
Coach.
All right.
Good night. How about that? What a guest. Coach Rob always brings his A game, and tonight was no different. Mr. Lasker, obviously, since that catch up with Coach Rob, we saw Leicester Riders crash out of the trophy to the London Lions. The league and playoffs just left for them now. It's plausible that this team could end up empty-handed. They certainly will be right there, but it's not a given. With this roster, would that be seen as a huge failure?
This might come off a little bit harsh, but unfortunately, yes. You know, the Leicester Riders since 2012 have been held to a different standard, to where every season, no matter who's on the roster, whether it's most returning team or, a team full of rookies, the standard there is trophy or bust, similar to the Newcastle Eagles over a decade, who's been standing in those same shoes. And now you can even add the London Lions to that conversation as well. Those three clubs were, 75% of the league, success for them is just making the playoffs, happy days. But for the Leicester Riders, Newcastle Eagles, and the London Lions, it's silverware or bust. And, we went through a 2-year slump here at Newcastle where we went silverware-less. And, even though we had a good, solid record, had a good season, all people talked about was you didn't win anything. So, this team is more than talented enough to have a trophy at the end of the year, but they got time. I mean, they still control their own destiny. They only have 1 or 2 losses in the league, which I think, they're top of the table. And then also they got the playoffs. So still a lot to play for. But to answer your question, Jay, unfortunately, it's championship or bust.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, the other thing you've got to take into consideration is it will be such a shame, because I very much doubt that entire roster would return for the following season as well. Gino Crandell is having an outstanding season, and then there will be a couple of guys I'm sure that Rob will maybe want to rotate and freshen up. As you do, you always try and freshen up that squad just a little bit, whether it's 1 or 2 pieces or whether it's a lot of pieces. It depends what you have. So, for me, I hope that they do something special this season, because, like I said, they're one of my favorite teams that I've seen. It just in terms of, I like the way that they play. I like the way that they play together. I like the camaraderie that they have. But, look, to be known as a great team in the BBL, you've got to put trophies in the cabinet. And, 2 of them are already off the table. And that can promote a little touch of desperation sometimes, I think, when those games are going to start coming thick and fast towards the end of the season and going into the playoffs. You don't want to be feeling the pressure of that need to win, rather than just having that hunger to win. So we shall see what happens. Like you said before, still a lot to play for, so we don't want to be too down about it. But I thought that would be an interesting question. Okay, before we wrap this episode, I'm kind of hijacking the fans' mailbag. There is something that I've seen on the socials, a lot of people talking about it, and I've held it away from the Marriott Minute because I think we need to discuss this a little deeper. Mr. Lasker, what are you making of this weird, almost flirting between the London Lions and LiAngelo Ball?
Much to do about nothing. I mean, let's look at this from this way. LiAngelo Ball is an import right now. Who are the imports for the London Lions? DeAndre Liggins. Are they getting rid of him? Absolutely not. Dirk Williams. Are they getting rid of him? No, sir. Orlando Parker. Nope. He's balling. I mean, the only question mark is Kevin Ware, but right now he's settled into a nice role of 6-man, producing, giving them a spark. So you're going to get rid of him for an unknown commodity, which you don't know what you're going to get out of Ball. So it's much to do about nothing. I think it's just to stir the pot. And then if it were, I would be very disappointed at the London Lions, and it would be very unprofessional because, again, you got 4 imports that's on that team who just played a game on Thursday. So, for that reason, I think it's just a little tongue-in-cheek. However, I think he would be a great signing if we had the ability to have fans in the building, because he would be a hot ticket. He would put bums on seats. But right now, that's not really a factor. So what's the point of bringing him in at the moment? There's no European campaign. So why would you try to disrupt the chemistry that took so long? Remember, early episodes, we were coming on here talking about, this team, they're not a team. They don't want to play together. And look at them now. They've come together. They have a lot of chemistry about them. They figure things out, and you're gonna disrupt that. I don't see that happening.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I think there's a little bit of smoke with that situation. I do think that there's probably some truth that there's some interest, but I'm very similar to you that move only makes sense probably more from an off-court situation than an on-court. That's not me necessarily saying that LiAngelo Ball's not a good player, but he hasn't really done anything. And like you said, you've got 4 really strong players there that, a few of them have already come out and say that hinted that they're on multi-year deals and stuff like that. The only thing, there's the only one little piece of me that thinks something could happen sooner than it should, is that this is Vince and this is London. And I think, like, in an interview, like, he was kind of talking about that whole kind of factor, trying to bring that level to the capital. But again, until you can get fans in the building, I don't understand how you can really capitalize on that Ball name. And
and also, if it's going to happen, it needs to happen ASAP, because I don't know what the deadline is for this season, but usually it's the end of February, unless you get an injury. So if it's going to happen, it needs to happen ASAP. But again, I don't see it happening.
No. Brilliant. Okay, episode 23 is a wrap. Thanks to Coach Paternostro for his time. Thanks to all of you for lending us your ears. And if you're hitting us on the YouTube, then eyes and ears. We appreciate you as always. Drew, lead us out.
Tune in next week, guys, as we invite Killer Cam to the show. This episode is called The Fan Experience, as we invite 5 lucky fans to the show. To enter, all you need to do is like, follow, and retweet the graphic on Twitter, and on Instagram, like, follow, and tag a friend to qualify. Competition closes on Tuesday at midnight. We hope to see you next week on the show.
The show.
We love basketball.
We love the game.
And the people in it.
Since the start of the season,
each of us have taken a knee before games
to show our support for Black Lives Matter.
We've printed logos on our team kits.
And we have worn t-shirts in support of the cause.
What we really need now is action.
To achieve change, we need leadership.
And that starts with us.
We want our sport to truly reflect us.
We believe that together we can reach our communities.
The incident that we faced here in Glasgow
highlights the need for us to do more.
It highlights a need for us all to look at ourselves and consider,
what can I do?
What can I do? What can I do?
What can I do?
What can I do?
What can I do?